You know America is about debt.
Isn't it funny? How do I say this? Isn't it funny that we do a study to judge America's financial fitness, and we only look at the people that are heavy users of debt?
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Dougals, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Welcome back to Skippy and Dougals Talk Investing. We've got a brand new website, y'all, skippydougals.com. Go check it out. It's got all the things on it, bells and the whistles. Go check out skippydougals.com.
Shout out to the intern. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, you get what you pay for, you know what I mean? Today in the fishbowl, we got a few items for you. We're going to start off by talking about passive income ideas that certainly will not work, but somebody on Twitter thinks they will. Passive income ideas. Next, we're going to talk about the story of BrewDog, the startup, the unicorn of yesterdecade. Then touch on zip codes and their relevance for your future economic and credit worthiness. And then wrap it up with some listener mail on it's about getting a job and figuring out what you want to do with your life, but we're going to tie that into investing and your investing persona as well. Thank you for that listener mail. skippydougals@gmail.com is how you send in listener mail. You ready to get going?
So one thing that didn't make the cut this week, Dougals, is an article you sent me about some scam company giving financial advice on all the social platforms.
Oh, yeah.
All right, didn't even make the cut. There's so much of this garbage out here. But I could not resist this graphic floating around Twitter right now that says 26 passive income ideas. And by my count, there might be 3 or 4 that are actually passive or actually good ideas.
There's 2 filters. The first filter is this even passive? You're right. And the second is it a good idea? Which I didn't think the first filter needed to exist when the whole title is about
26 passive. Okay. We're just going to make fun of a few of these. So, like, in the more traditional ones, this is truly passive. They list high-yield savings accounts. Yeah, bro. Like, sure, if you're sitting on $100 million, a high-yield savings account might be a nice way to go.
When I saw that one, so I just picture somebody in a trench coat coming up to me like, psst, yo, Skippy, come over here. I got an idea. Do you never want to work again? Have you heard of Ally Savings Bank?
It's so bad. I mean, so one, yes, if you're incredibly wealthy, maybe it would work. But 2, if that's your plan, that's your 20-year plan, you're just destroying your wealth. It's a horrible idea. Then they have, let's just go through some of the ones on here that are not passive income and do not really create income. So rental property, yeah, completely passive. Let me tell you, that just takes no work. They have Amazon FBA, which I believe is like the fulfillment center thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
fulfillment by Amazon.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to buy the product. You don't have to sort the product. You don't have to ship the product. You don't have to put up the cash to buy the product in advance, wait for Amazon's negative cash conversion cycle to screw you over as a seller. None of that. We got vending machines selling ebooks. Yeah, who's writing the ebook? You just buy those things.
Here's one I enjoyed that they took the well-known acronym and just spelled it out to make it sound like something new. Electronic commerce.
We got house hacking. I'm not even sure what that is. I think that's letting someone sleep in your third bedroom. Yeah, that's passive. Short-term rentals and car sharing. Yep, no costs on your car there. But I have a soft spot in my heart for laundromats. But again, like, who buys the laundromat? Who refills the detergent? Who fixes the washing machines? That are completely passive. And then we have the last line is just this straight garbage. Blogging, stock videos, stock photos. Yeah, you're just supposed to go around, take some beautiful nature photos, and people are going to pay you because Getty Images does not exist.
Or ChatGPT. I guess maybe that's the passive part. If maybe every Monday you go on and you say, can you create 100,000 images for me specific to this week? Then maybe that's passive and people will buy them. Okay. No?
Not only is there cost associated, not only is it not passive, it's just people beware. There's so much garbage out there. It's so much garbage. This is really bad.
Oh, it's good to start out with a laugh. Oh, my goodness.
All right. Okay. So I don't know much about BrewDog. Do you?
I know a tiny bit. I don't know much about the business, but I've been to the BrewDog in Las Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's that. That's about my knowledge before I read this Financial Times piece.
What I've heard about BrewDog is, I don't know if these are true, but this is what I've heard. They have horrible beer and the founder's a jerk. Okay, those are the two things I knew going into this Financial Times article. And listen, I love you, Financial Times.
Check on both those things, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I love you, Financial Times. But when I read the Wall Street Journal, I don't also have to have like a translator with me. There's some to do some research on this. Great article though. So it's really about a new reality TV show that's coming that is apparently going to document BrewDog's journey to a unicorn. Okay? Along the way, something that happened that is 100% my greatest fear when it comes to investing in early stage companies, startups, whatever you call it. The share dilution basically robbed a bunch of people. They changed the terms of the preemptive rights, and they did a bunch of other shady things. There's two things I want to hit on here. Is there anything else you want to cover before I do my deep dive into a couple narrow areas?
Start to do the deep dive. There are probably some places where we should provide definitions and some background or context in case folks aren't aware of some of these terms, but maybe we'll do that during the deep dive.
Yeah, completely.
Okay,
and
cool.
I'm going to try and keep it at a high level so we don't have to talk about too many ridiculous English financial terms. Here's what caught my interest, though. So founded in 2007.
Okay.
And took on private equity from a California firm in 2017. But while all this is happening, I think just before the private equity comes, went to one of these crowdfunding sites and sold equity to retail investors, 130,000 people.
Yeah. So this was big marketing campaigns. People think about back in the Dollar Shaving Club, or was it Dollar Shave Club, whatever that was called back then, where people would make these marketing videos, and it was all about how do you become viral in order for your company to then become successful from a fundraising standpoint. That's the time period we're talking about.
So after he signs the deal with private equity and effectively becomes a paper unicorn, I say paper because the money's not really there. They're not really.
Are you just going to skip past that point and not talk about the deal?
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
All right.
But he does the rounds of saying how he's going to give 100 million pounds worth of wealth away. That wealth might be a zero today. In addition to the fact that he convinced 130,000 people to give their personal wealth, and that's probably a zero today because there's a couple paragraphs I want to read, and then we can add some info around the fringes of that. So, founded in 2007, BrewDog grew rapidly into a household name with publicity stunts and crowdfunding campaign. Then in 2017, it unveiled an estimate by a California private equity firm. To do the deal, Watt and his co-founder, Martin Dickey, changed the company bylaws and removed a key investor protection, so-called preemptive rights. Next, they transmuted some of their own stock into a new class of preferred shares, which they sold to TSG, that's the private equity firm, for about $110 million. BrewDog also raised $102 million, this is pounds, and issued those preferreds with some warrants. It gets even more complicated from there. My high-level recap there is this is super shady. And you're screwing all your previous investors by taking away their preemptive rights so they can get diluted away, which takes their shares to zero. And I don't know if your average person understands this, Diego. I don't know if they understand that you might start a firm with 10 million shares, and then by the time you IPO, it might be hundreds of millions or more, and your initial shareholders might still have this claim ticket, but the claim ticket's been diluted away in a way where it's worth nothing today.
Yep, that's exactly right. I'm going to mention three things, one of which is just repeating what you just said because it's important, but comes off the preemption point here too. So the first is when they raised the money from the private equity firm, they raised it exactly $1 billion. And what's fascinating about that to me, because this was happening very frequently around that time, between 2017 and 2020, in those years especially. So on the show almost a year ago, maybe about 9 months ago, we had Aileen Lee came on from Cowboy Ventures. And she's the person that coined the term unicorn to mean companies that were $1 billion or more. The reason why she coined it as unicorn is because it was so rare. Getting a startup to get to $1 billion was very rare. There were very few at that point in time. But then once a term comes into existence, people want it. Companies are like, oh, being a unicorn is what I need to be. If I'm not a unicorn, it doesn't matter. And so you saw a number of organizations that were raising money at exactly $1 billion valuation, having nothing to do with the value or even perceived value of the company at that point in time, but just because if you weren't, it didn't matter. I once was at a fireside chat with Stuart Butterfield, who started Flickr, and then Slack is a popular one now that people probably have heard of. And he had just raised money at $1 billion at this point in time. This was probably in like 2015-ish. And the person straight up asked him, why do you think at insert revenue, insert users, et cetera, your company's worth $1 billion? And he said, well, it had to be. That was the answer. So that's one point that's really interesting here. The second that ties into your dilution point, I'm just going to define the preemptive rights piece here, is that when organizations raise money, generally there is some clause that's around, it might be called something different, but usually it's around preemptive rights. That means that as an investor, when that organization raises more money, you have the first right of refusal to buy shares so that you can keep your percentage the same. That's something that is fairly standard for investors. What Skippy mentioned was they got rid of those rights when they raised the money from the private equity firms, which meant as an investor, now you can't re-up. So you're going to be diluted away. As a typical employee, that happens all the time. I have learned through my startup adventures that when I get the initial percentage, whatever that, or shares, whatever that might be, I usually, at a minimum, cut that amount in half to get a sense for what it's going to look like over the next couple rounds. If you have a firm that's going to raise many more rounds, you're probably more so talking about cutting that down by 60, 70% is likely what you're going to end up owning at the end. So you have to bet that the company is going to increase in value by at least that amount just to keep your initial stake. Okay. Insane.
Well, and I'm trying not to get too deep into the weeds. I think I will watch this show because it sounds crazy interesting to me, documenting this.
Should we watch it live on Skipping Doodles?
Think about what it means to get rid of your preemptive rights, right? The ability for your existing shareholders to maintain their pro rata ownership, right? To say, if I own 1%, I want to continue to own 1% even as the company becomes more valuable. It means you don't want to work with those people anymore. You don't seem to trust those people anymore. What are investors, especially early investors? They're your people. They are the people you trust and you grow with. And you just said, nope. We're done because I want to play financial gymnastics to get a unicorn valuation.
And I like financial gymnastics. Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's exactly right. And this is where that's obviously not the relationship that they had or wanted to have with these folks. It was just transactional, which maybe gets back to your original point when you were describing the quality of the beer and the quality of the management.
It's sad. So a couple more facts here. I won't read this, but we talked about 2017, the private equity check. In 2021, that's where they're doing the crowdfunding thing with these crazy incentives. Yep. If you referred enough investors, then you got an electric bike and stuff.
Investors can't be handed out like M&Ms.
Well, apparently they can. So at that point, shares are going for around 25 pounds per share. But then when they actually put this in September 2022, when they made a few shares liquid on a platform called Asset Match, shares are only going for $6 a share. Yep. And I think we kind of know where things are. They're still loss makers. Like, I'm not sure that the prospects here are kind of crazy. The article talks about how interesting their strategy appears to be to operate 100 really expensive bars around the world too, and that doesn't seem to be the core business model. But when it's other people's money, Dougals, you can do whatever you want. Another problem here. So the cautionary tales here are, one, a shady person can dilute you away, and two, a shady person can spend the money however they want to spend the money. It doesn't matter if it makes sense.
It's sad for a lot of people. As an employee with a company like this, I mean, and this gets back to some of the language you're using there, is there's so much trust. Like I think we were talking about with investors, but with employees, there's so much trust that you have in management. Everyday folks in their everyday lives don't come across these terms, don't understand how a lot of these things work, so you trust the people in management. And just putting your blood, sweat, and tears into something that someone is intentionally kind of screwing you out of in some ways, this really sucks.
Yes, this is a nightmare. But it's not as rare as people might think.
No, I know. That's what's sucky. Super sucky. All right, should we reach into the fishbowl? Go on to zip codes.
Let's do it.
I know 210, baby. Zip codes. Reach into the fishbowl because this week there was a Wall Street Journal piece that came out that walked through some new research being released by Opportunity Insights. And the title of this article is Your Credit Score is Shaped by the Neighborhood Where You Grew Up. This broad point is not new, but this research, and Opportunity Insights is awesome research tank. So I tend to follow and look at the stuff they do. But this research is new. And so we're going to touch on a little bit of this, and then I want to touch on a couple other points. The core of the research that they come out with is they studied 25 million people across different zip codes and looked at the impact of the zip codes they grew up in, no matter where they live today, the impact on their FICO scores, their credit scores. Sorry, I shouldn't be so specific but their credit scores. Yeah. And what it says is this: the lower the income zip code of where you grew up, generally speaking, the lower your credit score. And they throw like another little curveball in there to say it's not just income. It's the zip code matters in and of itself, probably for a number of reasons they don't fully specify in this article, but they allude to things like access to banking institutions that are credible, to other types of people that are in there, the racial makeup of the zip codes. But the core part was like income matters, but there are all these other factors that are tied to zip codes. So just where you grew up has such an impact on your credit score in a negative or positive way. And they bring up examples of places that do have similar incomes to show that when they grow up, people from this people from this zip code might be 50 points lower than another. So very interesting.
The high-level analysis here didn't surprise me and seemed a little repetitive. But I want to quote one of the co-founders of Opportunity Insights, because this is where I've been putting a lot more thought, and I think this might be a new insight. At least you take two people that both make $40,000. One grew up in Tampa, one grew up in Minnesota. The person who grew up in Minnesota is less likely to fall delinquent on their loans. Also, this is not his quote, but that means they have a much higher credit score on average. And it's like they really, even when they normalized for income and then looked at different zip codes, there still seemed to be some payment. I don't know the best way to say it. A whole other point I want to discuss with you is if credit scores is the right judge of financial fitness here, because that's a different topic, but fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And to the point that both of us are named, this is the high level insight is not new. But one of the things to go back into Opportunity Insights history, if people have not heard of the organization, about, I want to say around 15 years ago, maybe not quite, but it was during the Obama administration. The Obama administration packaged up a lot of census data and IRS data, merged it together, made it fully anonymous, and then gave access to that information to a select group of research firms so that they could look at things like economic mobility. Opportunity Insights was one of those firms. So one of their seminal pieces of research was about economic mobility and what it means for your zip code and other attributes of your upbringing, what that means for economic mobility in the future. I name this to say one of the high-level insight that came from that I think is really interesting that I'll tie back into here is they found that all the variables and all the attributes you could look at, the thing that could have the most impact on someone's ability to move forward economically is them having a social connection to at least one person in the next strata of the economy. And so what that meant was, the reason I tie that back here is because when I think about something like a zip code, some zip codes, you're more likely to have access to people that might have greater financial literacy, that might just be in a different economic bracket, that might have different social connections. And some zip codes just don't have it. And so like the zip code does come with a lot of things, but I think that initial insight from some of their earlier research likely ties into this.
Agreed. That's a great insight. And I can very easily picture the wealth ladder, I'll call it, across three different zip codes that kind of overlap, from low to mid to high incomes, and see people very easily moving one step up or one step down, but probably not 2 or 3 steps up or 2 or 3 steps down across zip codes.
Yep. This is also something that's talked about by John Hope Bryant, who runs the Operation Hope out in Atlanta. He talks a lot about zip codes, and mostly not about credit scores specifically. He does talk about that, but he talks about it as relating to just general financial wellness and financial well-being. So I've been seeped into a bunch of that. One of the things that he frequently cites is that life expectancy can vary by something like 10 to 20 years, depending on your zip code, which is separate from financial, but also somewhat related. But your zip code matters so much. This is also why things like redlining, et cetera, end up mattering a lot. So we don't have to go deep into that. But like the zip code is it's a unit that doesn't get referred to quite as much, but it's really, really important. Okay. We don't have to go deeper into there.
Yeah. You know what's amazing? Just if you look at this graph of average credit scores, it in a way aligns to a graph of America with life expectancy. Like there's some correlations there that to me it just sucks. There shouldn't be correlations there, but there clearly are. Let me just, while we're going on mini tangents, I absolutely hate that everything here is tied to credit scores. It's tied to credit scores, and then it's tied to credit worthiness, and it says their ability to repay loans. And I kind of always wonder in the back of my mind, because I end up being a very conservative person when it comes to credit and debt. Like, what about the people that have good financial fitness that don't rely on debt to buy their cars, that don't rely on debt to do everything in life? Am I just too idealistic here? Is that not how America works? Or is there a better way? Because to me, it's like there might be 10 to 20% of the population that doesn't even care about debt. And if you're missing those insights from those people that are probably some of your most financially fit, isn't that an issue? Am I crazy?
So your point around missing that group of people, I can take. I don't know if it's 20%. I think you might be being ridiculous with 20%.
1%, 3%? I don't know.
So, people are missing. Granted, you saying that those people might represent what America is ridiculous. You know America is about debt.
Isn't it funny? How do I say this? Isn't it funny that we do a study to judge America's financial fitness, and we only look at the people that are heavy users of debt?
Yeah.
Like, what about the most? It's like we're doing a study on typical BMI metrics for weight, but we're going to exclude the professional athletes. I think the professional athletes might be the ones that have it all figured out that we could learn some things from, because they're the most fit.
I'll give a different analogy, but I like this train that you're going down here. Before I give the analogy, what this does say is that America runs on debt. We thought America ran on Duncan, but America runs on debt. So it's saying the baseline is that you have debt. Now, what do you do with it? That's what it's stating, which I don't think is necessarily wrong. Now, to your point, the analogy I'd give is if we said we're going to judge financial fitness by how many pounds you've lost in the last year. Like, who has lost at least 30 pounds in the last year? And those are the most healthy people, because you're assuming that the baseline is that you had at least 30 pounds to lose. So how well did you lose your weight? In addition to what you were saying around, it's kind of the same thing. It's just the flip of, why don't we study the folks that are able to be like the millionaire next door, like that book? Can we study the folks that are running a financially lean operation for long periods of time?
And this study implies, I like that analogy. That's very well said. This study implies that if you're in the wrong zip code, there's basically none of those financially fit people just crushing it without leveraging significant amounts of credit. That's probably true. But if there are some of those people, they would be great people to gather insights from, because they're playing a whole different game and they're actually winning at it.
That's right. This makes me think about, I don't think I may have thought about this before, but at least not in this way, or it's coming to me as if I hadn't. Historically, I've heard a lot of folks say, we're going to move to this other location because of the school system. Like, I've heard that a lot. What I haven't explicitly or consciously thought about before is what else you get just by being in that other zip code. Like, the school actually might end up being, you can say school is it's the social hub. And so maybe you just get a bunch of stuff by being around those students, around those teachers, around those parents, right? There might come a lot there. But what else do you get from, it might be your access to the banks that are there, the people that happen to live a street over. Like, there's like other stuff that probably maybe is more important than the education itself in the end. Just thought about it.
Yeah, next time I talk to a realtor, I'm going to be like, we are moving. We'd like to move, not for schools, but for economic ability of the zip code.
Yeah. Yes. Can you show me the life expectancy?
Yeah, come on now.
For this home? For this particular home?
All right, what's next in the fishbowl?
We're going to reach in the fishbowl for listener mail. You ready for it?
Yes.
Hit that jingle.
They fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Fight, 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 fight. The Skippy and Douglas Show.
This listener mail comes from Tom. The name of this blog is Face It, You Are a Crazy Person. As I mentioned in the opener, the real context and content of this piece is about figuring out what you want to do in your life. That's what it's about. I'm going to make this a little bit into investing as well, but first I'm going to talk about why you're a crazy person and why you need to face it. Here we go. So I'm going to read a couple things. This is, and I quote, a paragraph from here. I meet a lot of people who don't like their jobs. And when I ask them what they'd rather do instead, about 75% say something like, I don't know, I'd really love to run a little coffee shop. If I'm feeling mischievous that day, I ask them one question: where would you like to get the coffee beans? The reason why that's important, and then I'll read a couple more things from here, but the reason he does that is because he says that the human imagination can run wild. We can think of so many different things, but often the human brain doesn't dive into that first, maybe even second level thinking, saying, what would it actually mean to run a coffee shop? Like, it sounds great when I watch Friends or whatever, and I go down and see Jennifer Aniston on the little perk or whatever, Central Perk. That sounds great. But what's it like to actually run a coffee shop? So that's why he says, where would you get the coffee beans? And then if he's feeling really cheeky, he dives further and he goes, which kind of coffee mug is best? How much does a Marzocco, I don't even know what that is, espresso machine cost? Would you bake your blueberry muffin in-house or would you buy them from a third party? You get the point. He just starts diving deeper to be like, do you understand what it means? And he calls this the quote-unquote coffee bean procedure.
No, you got to do the last two questions.
Okay.
What software would you use for your point of sale system? What would you do when your assistant manager calls you at 6 a.m. and can't work because they have diarrhea?
It's real.
Real. But no one thinks about these when they tell you want to start a coffee shop. And this is the stuff you actually have to do.
Yeah, it makes me think, to stick on the career front, it doesn't make me think about when people have been like, I want to become a manager. And really, generally, what's behind that? Not all the time. I'm overgeneralizing vastly here. But a lot of times, what's behind that is I've seen the salary bands for managers, and that seems higher than the salary band that I can make of where I am. I want to be a manager. You go through all the leadership development training. You learn this, you learn that. You start going to one-on-ones, and you go, oh, my God, I have to deal with people all the time and all their problems. You thought you were coming to work today, and it was about how do you increase the return on investment we're making on a project. Oh, no. You're dealing with Harry the cat. These are the kinds of things that matter, and they're important things because people are people. All right, he calls this the coffee bean procedure. And his thought is, if you can't answer those questions, and I really like this point, he says, if you don't even find them interesting, and that part I think is really, really important, then you should not open a coffee shop, because this is how you'll spend your days as a coffee owner. I really like the interesting point, because the first point is, if you can't answer them, you might just be like, it's content. I haven't learned that content yet. But if you don't find the questions interesting, then you're unlikely to learn the content to a degree that you could run your coffee shop effectively. Really like that. I'm now going to tie it into the investing world. Do you have any comments before I go there?
Pulling up one quote for you. But even his examples here, he's generalizing. But so you say you want to be a surgeon. Do you want to do the same procedure 15 times a week for the next 35 years? You want to be an actor. Do you want your career to depend on having the right cheekbones? And this, he's really generalizing, but it's funny. You want to be a wedding photographer? Do you want to spend every Saturday night as the only sober person in a hotel ballroom? No one thinks about these things. They're like, exactly. I like photography. It's like, no, do you understand what that means? Do you understand when your family's having fun on Saturday, you have to go work? That's right. It's such a good exercise. I really enjoyed this piece.
I'll say this. So I watched F1, the movie, this week, and I bet you one day a young Brad Pitt woke up and someone came to him and said, do you know that your whole career could just depend upon your cheekbones? And he went, tell me where to go. That dude's cheekbones, out of this world.
He's handsome. What can I say?
It's unbelievable. And he's 62 now or something. Out of control. Okay.
Here's a quote I was trying to find, since we have to throw out one Munger quote per episode. In my whole life, I've never been good at something I wasn't interested in. It just doesn't work. There's no substitute for strong interest. If you're interested in answering the coffee bean questions, and if you bake your muffins in-house, you might actually be able, then you have to find the funds to open a coffee shop, the right location. Yep. You have to get lucky 1,000 times. You have to find the right clientele. There's 1,000 other things that have to happen for you to run a successful coffee shop. But at least you might be able to get there. You have to have strong interest.
Exactly. Now for the investing side, this is not a broad leap. In many of my analogies, I have to leap over chasms. I don't think this one is too much of a leap. We talk about very frequently on here that in general, 99, whatever the percentage is of a high percentage of investors should buy SPY, VTI, have a mix of a broad-based ETF that is U.S. and international and bonds, whatever that might be. Just it's simple. Keep it simple. And there's the allure of individual stock picking that especially hit, a few years ago, not for the first time, right? Individual stock picking. And what I would say there is there's the same set of questions you can ask there. You go, what stock are you looking to buy? I want to buy Lucid Motors. Cool. How much debt do they have? And at what interest levels and states of maturity? And how much cash do they have to be able to pay that over time? And if you take something like that, I just picked that stock at random. If you take that, you either say, same questions. Do you know the answers to them? Yes or no? If you don't, do you even have interest in understanding the answers to those questions? Because if you don't, that means you're not going to look at the cash flow statement. You're going to look at the 10K. There's a lot of stuff that you won't end up doing. And it becomes much more gambling than it is investing in that world if you're not interested in those things. That's for stocks and stock picking. I think the other side of this is also about understanding yourself, which we talk about a lot in your own psychology, and really diving deep. One of the things that he says toward the end of this piece is it's uncomfortable to confront your own illusion of explanation depth, to admit that you really have no idea what's going on, and to keep asking stupid questions until that changes. And I think that that is also true in the world of investing, because the cocktail hour conversation that is great and that gets people all wrapped around you is when you're like, oh yeah, I got into Bitcoin at, or I got NVIDIA when, right? That's the cocktail hour convo. That's awesome. But people oftentimes don't want to admit that they're like, what actually happened was I had X amount of dollars, and the person I was trying to date at that point in time, said she was trying to interview for NVIDIA, and I wanted to say I was an investor. So I bought that stock, and then I forgot about it. That might be the true story at that point in time, but it's hard to admit those things, and that's not the cocktail hour conversation. So I think it's good for folks in the investing world just to be honest with yourself about where you stand there, what you're interested in, and dive a few levels deeper into what it takes. When we talk about Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett and Howard Marks and all these other people, and the amount of work that goes into things that we never see is critical to understanding what it really takes to become someone like that.
Agreed. Mic drop. We're done. Peace out.
Last episode.
I like it. I really have nothing more to add. That's great.
Okay.
So last thing from the Fishbowl, Wall Street Journal wrote the article they write every year, which is the cities where college grads are actually landing jobs.
Yep.
One, they have it organized by Northeast, Midwest, West, and South. And It's so funny. You can click on the West graphics and all of the West is unaffordable. There's no place to live.
Where do they start the West? Is that the Mississippi or is it further?
Oh, their West graphs, the cities are Denver, Phoenix, San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento. So Seattle got snubbed in this graphic. None of those cities are affordable, right? If you look at holistically, if you look nationwide, the most hiring is happening in Raleigh, North Carolina. The best wages are in San Francisco, but San Francisco also has the worst affordability. So what does that really mean? I have seen in my life people take the job in San Francisco and be like, dude, I'm making $300K. And then seeing them be poorer in real life wealth terms.
It means you work remotely for a San Francisco-based company.
It's a nice hack. One that surprised me, one that did not surprise me, best affordability is Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think there might be a reason why, guys, but shout out to our friends in Oklahoma.
Yep.
These two surprised me. The worst hiring is Salt Lake City, more affordable than your average city in the West, but apparently no one's hiring in Salt Lake, which is crazy. And then the worst wages are Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Odd. Is that largely military based, maybe because there's a strong military presence or something?
I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes there, because that's the only graphic that Virginia Beach is highlighted in.
Interesting. Here's a passive income idea I just came up with: is get a remote job as a software engineer in San Francisco. Passive income hack.
Why not 10 of them?
Get 10. Yes, get 10 of those jobs.
That's a wrap. Thanks for hanging out with us. We mentioned it before. Reviews are important for helping more people find the show, so we'd appreciate a review there. If you hate the show, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, please do.
And then if you want to support the show, skippydougals.supercast.com allows you to get premium subscriptions to support the show, get the show a day early, and also get some additional research recommendations for stocks we're considering. Dougals, we're going to talk about it at some point. All my stocks do nothing but go up. I mean, this is really it's odd for me. I don't know what, but then what's so funny is all the stuff on my watch list always does nothing but go up too. It's been a crazy couple months.
It has
in
been a
the
crazy
stock
couple
market.
months. And how's a brother supposed to tax loss harvest when there ain't no tax loss?
That's
You know
what
I
I'm
mean?
sayan man. Like, how am I supposed to save money on taxes over here? Everything
I was
just goes
tax loss
up all the
harvesting
time.
up the wazoo like 4 months ago. You know what I mean? Like it was. I'm joking.
Those are investor jokes that only half of our audience gets. All right. We'll talk to you next week, guys.
Thank you.